All right, welcome back to this series videos, and today we'll focus on the backend side. So we'll be focusing on two very interesting features of Next.js. The first one is file system routing, including dynamic routing. And the second one will be getInitialprops to be doing server-side rendering. So now that we have our database set up, we can do all the backend, which means we can get data from the clients, store them in the database, and serve them in the next sessions. We'll be doing like a small twist on this fairly common thing, and that twist is we are going to use an architecture called bring your own database. So basically we're going to ask the clients to give us the string to connect to a database. So we won't be hosting anything ourselves. All right, so the project is just as we left on the front-end side. So we have all rate resets. And what we want to do is enable a way to get resets from a database. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add a dummy response. So let's go here, and it's going to be fetch raids, for instance. I think it's request, yes, in this order. And we're not going to return, we're going to send a JSON. That's going to be molten core, I think, molten core. And the string is going to be, let's say, Thursday, 24 November. Okay, let's go and use the same as we have here. GMT. Okay, and let's say it's going to be 21. All right. And I also need a date, but that date is going to be sent. That's going to be computed on the well, it's going to be rendered server side, but it's going to be on the front end part. I'm going to explain a little bit more after. All right, so let's go and add a second one. Let's copy paste this. Raid molten core. Let's say it's going to be 7 days later. All right. All right, so we are going to put here, let's do a new page. All right, let's call it dummy JSON. And we're gonna get initial props from rec. All right. So here we're gonna, no, yes, sure. When we used the syntax of the getInitialprops, what's gonna happen is next, rather than just serving the component, we'll actually compute everything that's there, and the return is gonna get injected into props of your component in the end. So what we're going to do here is we are going to verify whether your server-side rendering or client-side rendering. Then we are going to fetch data. Then we are going to return data and date enriched, so with an actual date object. So the first thing that we can do is just verify that we actually have a request object. So let's say we want to get a base URL. If rec exists, it means we're rendering on the server side. And let's say this one is nothing. Okay, and we'll see what we're gonna do here. And it's going to be, okay, so I'm gonna make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. All right. So we're gonna say that the chances that we have HTTPS is greater than anything else, because we're going to serve on the Xi.co URL. Then we're going to search for the host, and this one is going to be headers x forward host. And if this one is not defined, rec.headers host. Okay, hopefully I'm not mistaken. If host index of localhost is greater than -1, it means that we are on the development servers and we want to switch protocol for this one. So it's gonna be protocol is HTTP, and if we have this, it means that the base URL is equal to our protocol colon / our host, and hopefully I'm not mistaken. Why is this one not set here? Okay. All right, so this was verification. So we're going to get the base URL. Basically, it's going to be https colon / calendar.classicwowtools.com, or it's going to be nothing if we are on the client side. So in order to fetch things, we're going to use a different library. So you can use fetch if you want, but on the server side, so node.js, fetch doesn't exist because it's bound to the window object. So you can either add isomorphic fetch. So basically it's a package that adds the fetch features to Node.js. But I am going to use Axios just for the sake of simplicity. All right, so I want Axios. I'm here on Windows needing sudo. So Axios is just another library, another library to fetch data. Axios from Axios. All right, so now what we want to do is fetch the data. So I want to do constant response await Axios get, and then we're going to use our base URL, which is either https://localhost or HTTP, or https:// the domain we set up in previous video. And it's going to be API fetch raids. Okay. And what we're going to do now that we have this, we are going to enrich the data. So raids is equal to response.data. So in that object, we're going to use, you're going to get this response. And what we want to do is add the date to those objects. So what we're going to do is raids for each. They're going to be called R. So for each r.date is equal to new date r.string. All right, and now we are going to return raids. Okay, so hopefully this will work. All right. Let's go compile. Okay, so I'm now in the local, and what I want is to do dummy. All right. Cannot, okay, for sure. This needs to be asynchronous. API, oh sure, yes, because this is not right. There we go. Okay, so there's not much change. Basically, we just fetch the data and we don't actually display anything. So we're gonna go to the here in the dummy thing. We actually get into this component here, home. We are gonna get new props. So we have here props, and we're gonna just pass props to our calendar component. There we go. And here in the calendar, we're gonna ask for props. And we are going to add here if props raids. We're gonna just, so in the first part, we're just gonna merge everything. So it's gonna be not really consistent, but we're gonna see the result. So maybe just before doing this, we can go here and just verify we actually got all of our stringify. So it's going to be props raids null1. Okay, so here we have the response from the response from the API, so the dummy information we have here, and we see that we actually get the props here. So basically, when you navigate to the /dummy, it actually executes everything here, send what you return as a prop. So props dot raids, it's going to be populated. We pass everything here to our calendar component, and in the calendar component we have access to what we fetched on the server. All right, so this is good. All right, so what we're gonna do is if props raids is defined, let's say length is greater than 0, or just maybe just say if it's defined, what we're gonna do is molten core, we're gonna just copy paste this and concat props dot raids, and do the same sort by date, else do this. All right, but we are kind of not wanting to do something like this. Reset array. We want to do something like this. All right, so if you have raids, so what we just added, we're gonna just concat them. If you don't, then we just do the same as we did before. All right, so where were my thing? Okay, so no, next year. The 21 and the 14. So why are they not here? What are they not here? Let me check information here. Okay, let me check everything was good. So we're gonna add back the JSON stringify. We want props.raids null and 1 to get beautiful. Okay, so Z. Okay, so why are they not here? Let me see if reset array. If it just didn't. Okay. Raid molten core. Okay, so they are at the very last part of it. Okay, so sort is not working with those. sort by date for some reason. Sort by date, date bigger, date, okay. Date is bigger than here. We actually get dates, okay. Why is it not working here? So molten cores and onyxias are good. Name, string, date, but okay, that's good. 19, 11 should be no problem. Okay, let me see. Date and a date bigger than b date. Here, okay. So okay, so molten core, onyxia, molten core, onyxia, molten core, onyxia, molten core, onyxia, molten core. Okay, seems like the date is not right. Okay, so the date element isn't right, so we're gonna make sure this is taken care. So I don't know why this wouldn't exist here, but we're gonna take care of it around here. Okay, so for each RAID, okay, so for some reason it didn't work on the initial props. Maybe React can't pass date. Looks like we learn something every day. All right, so date cannot be passed on the on props, I guess. All right. Yes, the more you know. Okay, so I'm gonna remove those JSON strings. All right, so we have our RAID here and our RAID here. Okay, so we saw how to use the dynamic routing, so the routing on the file system level. So you can create API endpoints, but also new pages. And now we are going to add dynamism. So fetching information from the database and sending new information from the database. All right. So what we want to do first is we want to create a new API route, which is going to be add RAID. All right. Export default. It's going to be request, then response. And rest JSON. Error false. Okay. So what we're going to do is, rather than connecting to a database that the server knows, we're going to connect to the database that the client provides. So it's a little bit strange maybe, but in the serverless architectures, it actually makes sense. Also makes sense to enable people to bring their own RAIDs to this platform and not having like everyone sharing the same database. All right, so in order to do that, we need to actually add a new component that we're gonna call bring your own database. All right. And this one is gonna need React from React. Okay. And we're gonna do export default. And we don't need anything. And we're gonna return, let's say, a section. In that section, there's gonna be an input type text. And there's gonna be a button that says bring, and it's going to be not mine, but bring your own database. This is going to be h1 own database, and this one is going to be let's go. All right, so in calendar we're going to import that component BYOD from BYOD. All right, and we are going to get something just here, BYOD. All right, unterminated string for sure. All right, so we're going to focus on the design later on. Let's just focus on functionality. We lost a little bit of time debugging that date thing. Maybe I'll just cut it in post-production. But basically what we are going to do now is we are going to ask for the Mongo string that we got in the previous video. And using that string to actually connect to a database. So if I if we just specify the database string connection within the URL, we're going to have a problem because we're going to have like more slashes, more everything, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually just base64 the string and pass that identifier in the URL and making sure our APIs can fetch it, reverse the base64 back to ASCII, and then connect to database. So to do that, what we are going to do is we are going to install another package, and this one is going to be GS base64, and we want to save it. There we go. I think this one is base 64 like this. From GS base 64. All right. We are also going to use useState. All right. So this one is going to be const, let's call it Mongo, set Mongo, use state empty. Or maybe we can just add default the placeholder user password at server/database. Yes, all right, I think that's it. That's what we need. So this one is going to be value Mongo on change. We're gonna set Mongo target value. All right. And here we're gonna say on click we're going to navigate to BYOD. All right. Navigate to BYOD. Const navigate to BYOD is a function that's going to be redirecting our browser to another page with the proper base 64 string in the URL. So in order to do that, we're going to import the router from next router, and this one is going to be router push to let's call it BYOD. And this is going to be base 64 encode Mongo, if I am not mistaken. All right, so if I do something like this, all right, so it brings me to this page with very, very long URL that doesn't exist yet. So that's why we don't have anything. But what we can do is actually base 64 decode that base 64 string, and it will get the information that we had in this input. So we're going to use this to connect to the database, and yeah, let's do it. So what I need to do is create a new folder that's going to be BYOD. So here, and this one is going to be id.js. Okay, so here we need to import React from React. We need to import Axios, because we are going to use Axios. We are going to import that's pretty much what we need actually. Okay. And export is props return test. All right. And we're going to say pre here. Actually, this is going to be straight up the same as our dummy page. Actually, it's going to be straight up the same. With the only difference that we can just get a new information here, which is the query. And we are going to return that query. Right, yes, because we need to get this one from a different thing. Okay. And in that query object, we are going to get stringify props.query. We are going to get the ID that we got here. All right. So we have here, it's not very visible in the stream maybe, but we have an object with the ID and what we get in the URL just upstairs. And here I'm going to say BYOD equal true, which means calendar is not going to serve this. All right. Okay, so we're making progress. Now, what we need to do now is getting that string, that base 64 string that we have in props, and sending it to the API. So basically, when the backend is going to be querying the database, needs to get this information on where to connect. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this information to our Axios request. So it's going to be headers, and we want to say an header that's going to be called database, and database is going to be query.id. Okay. Yes. So that should be everything that we need. Okay. So now if we go to fetch raids, and I'm going to delete dummy page because we don't really need it anymore. On fetch raid, what we have is we have the query that comes from my brain lagged. So you get to this page, you ask for raids, and you get the header with the string to connect to the database. So here we're going to send a new object because it's going to be very convenient for us to search. And let's say it's going to be just the same, except name is going to be rec headers database. All right, so I saw that I had no response here for my headers. It's actually just because I made a small mistake. It's not header, but headers. And if we just do that, we'll see that we have our actual string that's up there. So what we're going to do now that we have this information here is we have in the headers the string that we need to connect the database. We are going to actually connect and do all of the backends thing, like fetching the data from the database and adding new RAIDs and making sure those information are broadcasted to the client side. So this is going to be in the next video. So this was just a setup video and maybe a more a video that's more focused on the getInitialprops that's provided by Next.js, so you can query things before actually mounting your component, and also the dynamic routing that you have on the file system level, thanks to Next.js as well in the page folder. So you can do API routes, you can do the ID variable, so you can add variable also in API routes, but here I'll just have it in my front end route BYOD, and yeah, from there we're gonna focus on the Mongo database and making sure we can add RAIDs and fetch them. So yeah, everyone that gets this URL will be able to see all the RAIDs that are added and add new ones as well. All right, so see you in the next video, and until then, cheers.